I'm Leslie.
I'm Laurie. Welcome to
Sumo Kaboom!
Sumo Kaboom!
Where we talk about all things sumo. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
Oh my gosh, yes we do. Days 11 through 15 of this amazing November Basho. I first want to say, if you hear anything in the background, there's a lot of Thanksgiving prep going on behind me, so people are cleaning. If you hear something in the background, just see if you can identify it. Like, go, oh, okay, it sounds like someone's cleaning back there, or whatever.
That sounds like someone's holiday flight taking off from Dallas Love Field, headed perhaps to Seattle. Who knows?
How about we start with some poetry?
I think that's a great idea. You want to start?
Yes. Tyler sent us this wonderful haiku that he said was inspired by our breakdown of the Basho over the last 2 episodes. And it goes like this. Detailed, blow by blow, exaltation and despair. Better luck next time. That is really accurate.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very accurate. That's amazing. Shall I read one?
Yeah.
This is from Sam. Just a little side note. I like that this has become like this pattern. Like people are like, oh, sumo poetry is a normal thing. And we send it into Sumo Kaboom because they will read it on air. I really love that this is a weird thing that has become really normal and beautiful. So we really love your poems. Like keep sending them because they bring us a lot of joy. This one is from Sam. Yukata in fall. Wooden shoes in plastic age. No wonder they fight. Wooden shoes in a plastic age, meaning like you wear yukatas. It's very traditional. Sam's in Omaha.
Thanks, Sam in
Omaha. I love it.
We have 2 bingo winners we want to talk about.
Yeah.
The bingos are still coming in, and we will find out who our second place winners are probably tomorrow or something like that. Because we always give people an extra 24 hours to watch the Basho just to make sure everybody's caught up. We got everybody's second place winner.
Yes.
But our very first bingo came in this time very early, and it's from Vicky. Whose email, like when we first started getting email from her, it kind of freaked me out. I thought we were on somebody's spam list because it comes in as Victoria's Secret.
Oh, I know that. I know that one. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. So Vicky says, oh my gosh, I can't believe mine was the very first bingo. I feel like a Sakuryu upon learning of his Makauchi promotion. Surprised.
Completely surprised.
Yeah, surprised and happy. Shame that it came at the expense of so many losing records. But hey, someone's got to lose. And when it comes to
for Vicky to win big.
That's right. And when it comes to Ryuden, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So Vicky says, I'm a relative newbie when it comes to sumo. I started watching after Hakuho already retired. Oh, that's so sad that you didn't start until after Hakuho retired. Oh, you missed so much. Oh.
I know, but it's kind of cool because no matter when you come in, everyone kind of, it's the sweet time you like reminisce about, you know? Like everybody has their sweet time. Oh, I came in when Tada Nofuji was on the rise. I came in with Akebono. You'll always have this sweet spot of when all of that was coming into your life. And it's all good.
Yeah. Vicky continues, we had just ditched DirecTV and left NHK on most of the time. I had never watched sumo before and was puzzled by the highlight shows that seemed to be on night after night. So this means she was watching NHK for the other programming, which I absolutely love.
Totally get.
Yeah, I completely get. I think in America we should have time-lapse video photography on our TV channels. I don't know why
we were just talking about this yesterday of in our world of crazed TV, it's all sensational. You just crave some sweet Japanese PBS, essentially is what it is.
We missed our calling, Leslie.
We did. Maybe it's not too late.
Maybe it's
I just have to find some big-time
channel.
Investors to help me start that channel.
Okay, back to Vicky. My interest was piqued by hearing Wakataka Kage's name mentioned over and over, especially Raja's machine gun delivery, which I assume sounds like Wakataka Kage.
Yes.
My husband and I were slowly sucked in as the tournament went on, cheering as the only wrestler whose name we remembered went on to win the Yusho. Well done. And we have been hooked ever since.
Wow. This is truly grounded, organic beginning.
It is.
Sumo.
I'll always have a special fondness for Wakatakakage because of that. I tend to like the smaller, feisty guys.
Yeah.
Hiradaumi, Tobizaru, Uda, Midori Fuji, Asakoryu, Wakai Kara. Ooh, this is a new one. Wakai Kari? Ooh, I don't know that one yet. I can't wait to get introduced to that one. My favorite is Midori Fuji. I love how he is fearless and never gives up, no matter how big his opponent is, which is a great life lesson, I think. I'm not even sure how I first became aware of your podcast, probably from a Google algorithm, but I'm glad I did. It's so much fun to listen to fans who love to talk about
Google.
what goes on, both on and off the dohyo, and I look forward to every single episode. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Vicky, thank you.
That's awesome, Vicky.
Yeah, and we will have a gift certificate coming your way so you can do some shopping at Big Sumo Fan right around Thanksgiving time. Yeah, it's coming to you this week, Vicky.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that. Congratulations, Vicky.
All right. I have the pleasure of telling you about our Kachikoshi winner. Kaito is the name, but their Shikona is Q Breezy, which I kind of think is amazing. Q Breezy. Huzzah! Long have I sought the legendary Sumo Kaboom jam, and finally it shall be mine. Now you get to bragging rights. This is fun. Q Breezy is a former professional poker player and sports bettor. I had a passing interest in sumo earlier, but I got back into it more seriously at the end of 2019. Since then, I've been trying to achieve first place in the Sumo Games World Championship. We have a lot of our listeners who also play the sumo games. It's a contest that combines the results across a wide variety of sumo prediction games. Unfortunately, I've fallen short again this year, but I'm headed for a second place finish for the second straight year.
Ooh, that's
after
pretty
blowing
good.
the lead again.
Wow.
My favorite wrestlers are a cursed bunch, I suppose. I'd list Takayasu. I know that one. Aqua, Enho, and Onosho as my top 4.
Oh, no.
And I love that because maybe as a sports bettor, you kind of want to, you're going to have bigger winnings when you bet on those guys that have kind of not the best luck. But then when they win, boy, are your winnings big.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, I can firmly get behind your list of cursed wrestlers. They are also really great in my eyes. So congratulations. You will be getting a prize box. Keep
calendar.
an eye out for, and a calendar. Yeah, a 2025 calendar. Yes. That's going to be coming your way once we get it in the mail sometime this week or next. So congrats.
All right. I think you are first up.
We're going to skip on past the newsflash and go straight into day 11.
Going into day 11, Takanosho, Hoshoryu, and Kotozakura were tied in first place with 9-1 records. Abi and Takeru Fuji were right behind with 8-2 records.
One storyline that I never thought I would ever be talking about is the storyline of Chiyoshoma. But here we are. And he on day 11, he's sitting at 7-4. He goes up against Toki Hayate. And reminding you, Chiyoshoma's in Maiga share 14. You know, Toki Hayate's Maiga share 15. And I mention this because you cannot Henka the Henka King. Meaning, the Henka King is and forever will be Chiyoshoma. And if you happen to be catching up with sumo a little bit later and you didn't see Chiyoshoma on the rise, that's all Chiyoshoma did for, I think, 2 solid years. But Chiyoshoma now is heavier,
Not exactly,
fighting.
but that's okay.
Well, I'm being dramatic, but you know what I mean. Like
Yes, I know what you mean.
He did a lot more hanking than he did like on the belt, you know, improving.
Yeah, and then he went
pushing
away
and thrusting.
from it for a while, went down to
And
Jurio.
And then he came back and like, you don't see a Henka on him very often. Until you forget, as Toki Hayate did, you cannot Henka the Henka King because he knows that better than anybody else did. Toki Hayate tried to sort of shift at the Tachia under into the side, but the Henka King knows that move very, very well. And boy, was he all over it. Chiyoshoma actually got a firm hold on the belt of Tokihayate and swung him around and completely crushed Tokihayate flat into the dirt. This was his best basho to date. And it was
done.
nice. Well done, Chiyoshoma. Nicely played.
Yeah. Speed, ability to slip to the side super, super quickly. Yeah, he's to be commended for this amazing result.
And, not everybody can react that fast to a henka. Yeah, I would think you would know, because you've done so many henkas, what the other guy should have done to keep you in check, right?
Yeah.
So he knew that, and he executed that brilliantly with Tokihayate. Takeru Fuji, who I love to talk about because he's bronzed and his body's like the Tasmanian devil, but a very sexy one. And Gonoyama, this was really fun because this was a very powerful tachiai. And then it was kind of the seesaw of advantage. It was Gonoyama advancing first, and then Takeru Fuji advancing back on Gonoyama. But then he sort of missed with his hands, and he actually air thrusted the shoulders of Gonoyama, which isn't the target area. You have to actually make contact. And that was really Gonoyama's quick thinking, and I think he jumped out of the way, or Takeru Fuji made a mistake. But Gonoyama charged back like a bull on Takeru Fuji. Takeru Fuji pulled on the back of Gonoyama's head while retreating, which is kind of like the one thing the commentators talk about the most. It's just kind of a mistake that always ends, usually, in a defeat, which is what it did. Takeru Fuji, he got pummeled, unless you're Shodai.
Unless it works. And then it works. Yeah, they think you're brilliant. But I do remember this because it's the first time I thought, oh, well, if you pull directly into yourself, well, of course, that would be a mistake. If you sort of pull to
out of the way.
Side and get out of the way, then it could work.
Then you get a chance.
Yeah, but you got to know exactly where you are in the ring.
Right.
But it was
you
the
have
first
to
time I thought,
lay the guy down.
Yeah, that was a mistake, yeah.
Yeah, you got to lay the guy down beside you.
Yeah.
Like, you can still be at the ring's edge, but you got to kind of scoot to the side and then pull and have him, hit the dirt first.
Yeah, otherwise you're just pulling somebody in for a hug.
Yeah.
Come on in, baby.
Come on in, and then you bowl me over.
Yeah, take this Tasmanian devil as your own. You got me.
And the shimpan definitely did, because Takeru Fuji landed square in the shimpan's lap, and that was enjoyable. Both men are tied, though, at 8-3, which is, hey, that's both guys got a makikoshi. This is the day. Oh, sorry, kachikoshi. Sorry. Tamawashi and Mitakayumi. I mentioned this only because the tape on Mitakayumi's buns.
It's incredible.
I mean, we saw revealing later in the Basho the massive bruise that's underneath that taping.
Yeah.
But wow. And Tamawashi won this, but I say this because this is a day that I was like, oh my God, Mitakayumi is struggling so hard. Why is he still fighting?
Yeah.
Then Abi versus Onokatsu. This was really fun. We had a mata. And then the second time around, Onokatsu knew how the tachiai felt from that first false start from Abi. And he kind of had a half tachiai. So I think Onokatsu kind of just got a little bit of the flavor that Abe was going to throw his way, which is usually his long arms approach. And so Onokatsu the second time just met Abe with his own long arm approach and drove Abe back and out. Abe wasn't allowed to retreat sideways either. Onokatsu just followed, kept pushing forward, kept him square in front, and it was easy, I'd say. And then both of these guys are also tied at 8-3.
Then this whole Basho, I've really enjoyed watching Onokatsu. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I have too.
It's been you could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. You can see him learning with each and every bout how this is going to work. Yeah. And it's really exciting. I think we're going to see really great things from that kid.
Yeah,
because he's so much better already than the first time he was up in Makuuchi, and I can just see. Okay,
he just had to get his sea legs.
Yeah, I had to get a feel for what this is about, and I can't wait to see where his ceiling is, but it seems like it's going to be much higher in Makuuchi or Sanyaku before he gets to his ceiling, and that's exciting.
Plus, he's kind of cute. He's cute to look at.
He is super cute. I know I know he has some huge fans out there.
Well, let's talk then about who has huge fans. Day 11 was the day that we got Ura versus Hiradoumi. This was maybe in the last 4 years of watching sumo, like one of the most fun matchups I've seen ever. And not because it ended up being a 3-for-1.
Or what I call a 3B.
A 3B, but it's because who we got to see in the 3B, the threesome. The first round between these two guys, they met. It was explosive, exactly like you thought it was going to be if they were just going to do one round. It was dynamic pushes and thrusts. Both men remained really low in their stances. Hiradoumi drove back on Ura, and at the edge, Ura pivoted and then tried to lay Hiradoumi back behind him. Hiradoumi, he drove through, and both of these guys flew out of the dohyo with gusto, just as you would expect them to do. It was initially called for Hiradoumi, and then, of course, there's a Manawi. And the Manawi, they get inconclusive results. So then we go in for our 2-for-1. We're happy that we get a rematch because both of these guys are so much friggin' fun to watch. The rematch, Ura decided to just drive straight ahead this time. Hiradoumi tried to pull going backwards, so that wasn't good, and he eventually got driven out of the dohyo. But what's weird is that Ura, in trying to finish him off, laid himself out and then flipped like a gymnastics flip in the air. He flipped himself sideways, and I think just for flair, or trying not to land first. I don't know how or why he flipped himself, but maybe it's just a style of sumo. And all we could do was just, watch him try to finish, Hiradoumi off. Hiradoumi skirted at the bales and jumped like hell up into the air to keep himself from stepping out first. Then upon that match ending, I don't even know who that was called for. It was, again, a Manawi, inconclusive. But it looked to me, when I looked at the slow-mo, it looked to me like Ura's butt hit the dirt first, but oh well. I think everybody at that point was like, you know what? Let's just go for another one for fun. like let's just, even though we could probably call that, let's just, like, we're all having a good time. Let's have these guys go again, because we never do this.
Yes.
So then another Torineoshi happened, and both guys, like Ura, his eyes were like, okay, I'm in for this. Hiradoumi was like, I guess. And they were both, I think, confused, but like, all right, I guess we'll do this. And I was like, when was the last time we saw a 3-for-1? Like,
never. It's the first 3B I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, in some time in history, I'm sure there is one. But anyway, we love it. Hiradoumi did look tired and maybe a little bit annoyed, but the last bout happened, and this was interesting because this is like all that frustration, maybe and annoyance from Hiradoumi. He had the most explosive tachiai I've ever seen. He blasted out of there, which I was like, all right, he had some gas in the tank. Ura went low. Also, he had a big tachiai too. This was huge, enormous pushes, huge thrusts. They used all of their frustration and their tiredness. They drove. Hiradoumi drove. Ura hopped to the side. Hiradoumi hopped too far forward. And at where Ura should have been, but because Ura wasn't there, Hiradoumi got turned around and he kind of stumbled and could never really find his center after this. Ura followed up, forward advanced, and blasted him out of the dohyo with a big push. And we love it. Hiradoumi goes a-flying, and Ura finally gets the win, which was an oshi taioshi, a frontal crush out. That is all they wrote on that 3P. I wanted to give them awards for
absolutely
that.
The 3B
but,
award.
In their daily practice, they go back to back like that all the time. That's nothing for them. It's just the pomp and circumstance before. They're not used to doing 5 minutes in between every time. That in person, that must have been like 15 minutes. Those people got their money's worth and then some, whoever was in the audience that day.
Did you see the footage of, okay, it's a fight coming in the in the following days, but I don't know that we'll talk about it. So it was an Ura fight in which he lost, and he like completely pummeled someone in the audience, like someone on the front row, this guy with gray hair.
Yes, I saw that.
So there's a video of that from a person behind him, like maybe a row or two behind him. And it's the most incredible video footage I've ever seen, because Ura comes in feet off the ground like he's gonna tackle this guy, and then he opens his arms really wide around the air around this guy and cushions himself as he's falling on this older man and completely pummels him, but without pummeling him. He leaves enough space so the man is okay. It is so cool to watch.
Wow, his instincts to do that in that split second.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
really
knowing
beautiful.
how to do that as you're flying through the air, and then realizing you're about to hit someone who's completely gray-headed and like, oh, this could be bad. I better take special care. Like everything about it is so cool to watch. He's amazing. That boy's amazing.
He's just amazing. Okay, I want to talk about Kotozakura versus Wakamoto Haru. Only because, real quickly, this was Kotozakura from the start, I think. After the initial tachiai, Kotozakura just drove, and Wakamoto Haru went back with it, and then he just kind of, it was an oshidashi win for Kotozakura, but I just was like, I feel like Wakamoto Haru just lost his ring sense. Otherwise, he would have had more fight at the edge. And so that gave Kotozakura the 10-1 lead.
Yeah,
and then
cool.
That left the last one of the last bouts. There's two other bouts, but at this point we're talking about Takanosho as well, and he goes up against Ozeki Onosato. This is another huge bout, right? Mm-hmm. What was interesting about this was very unusual. Takanosho started this whole bout with a game plan, and that game plan was actually a henka. And I was like, what? What is Takanosho doing a henka? Then he went in with a deadly nodowa. Onosato, imagine, like, he was reeling in all of that. He got stood up and tried to center himself, but that's when Takanosho went in straight with that nodowa. Onosato did a good job of trying to follow that momentum and kind of withstand it through the chaos. Takanosho was all over Onosato, though, and he drove like hell. And Onosato tried to quickly wrap his arms around the head of Takanosho and pull as he was being pummeled out, but it wasn't enough. It was too little, too late. And before you knew it, Onosato was running out of the ring. Onosato sat on the sidelines afterwards, and you could see his face was like, he was giving himself such a hard time. He was like, what happened? Oh, I don't understand. And that was him breaking down what exactly happened. And that also shows you the game plan that Takanosho had wasn't just one note. It was very clever. And at least I want to believe that he knew he was going in with a henka creating chaos, follow through by, that's the only way you can get in on the Ozeki, is surprising him from the beginning. And it
actually
worked.
Takanosho said in the interview after that match, he said, actually, I was going to do something else, but I got a bit scared. And so I changed my game plan at the last minute.
Wow. Then
to do what he did, that little
well, then
move.
maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Then he didn't overthink it then.
I just think it's adorable that he said, I got a bit scared.
Well, and he was interviewed on another day, and there's nothing I love more than a Takanosho interview because he is so open and honest. Yeah. And he usually reveals his heart in like the most vulnerable way. Yeah, I always love hearing him. He's just the sweetest. When he loses, you see him melt with sadness, and I want to hold him.
I know, he's your main cuddler. Like, he would be one of your main cuddle guys.
Adore Takanosho.
What was great about that match is that took Onosato out of the title race.
Yeah.
That. And I just think that's flat out incredible that he was out of that race after day 11. I don't think people expected him to be out of the title race that early. And I by the end of the Basho, I was wondering, okay, why did that happen? Is it that
Right.
people are watching him now and they're starting to identify
Understand,
where
his
his weaknesses are? Is it just fighting men that have way more craft earlier on?
Right.
Like it's a much harder lineup. Is that it? Like mentally, I wondered what it was by the end. I mean, he still did very well in this Basho. Still got his Kachikoshi, but it was a striking difference this time as opposed to last time.
Right. Very true. Last bout of the day was also pretty exciting. That was Hoshoryu versus Daisho. This was a big tachiai from both of these guys after actually a couple of matas. They couldn't get aligned. And this was all Daisho up top, actually. Huge pushes, huge thrusts. And Hoshoryu was meeting it, trying to get inside on Daisho, who expertly denied 2 attempts with his arm swinging full circle around to disallow any sort of Hoshoryu grab, arm grab, anything like that. And when he switched plans, Hoshoryu just went full frontal attack and drove Daisho back into the edge. Daisho, through some mysterious power, stayed in and then drove back hard on Hoshoryu. This was like so back and forth. Hoshoryu, who did some hopping back, he kind of stopped Daisho's blasts to his chest by not being there, essentially, to land those thrusts. Then Hoshoryu finally got what he wanted, which was the inside grip on Daisho. And then Daisho knew he had that grip and then tossed Hoshoryu like to the side like hell, like right before he ran out of real estate. And Hoshoryu was able to finish him off with a final push. I liked this because it was very back and forth, very exciting. And Hoshoryu was not allowed to pull his throws. And his second plan of attack, his game plan, was thwarted by Daisho. And Daisho played that smartly. He lost in the end.
Who?
But Daisho. Yeah. But that brought Hoshoryu tied up at 10-1 with Takanosho and Kotozakura.
Yeah, I liked that leaderboard. I really did. 10-1. Those 3 guys. That takes us to day 12. Couple things to mention about day 12 before I start breaking down some fights. I really enjoyed the Roga Onokatsu fight. I always love a long sumo bout, and this one was 1 minute and 37 seconds. I wouldn't call it a high energy bout, at least from the outside. I know from the inside, and it probably was, and they were both so exhausted at the end. Eventually, Roga muscled out Onokatsu. They were both kind of lumbering around at the end. But I appreciate the longer bouts. I always do, and I just want to mention them and say thank you to the sumo gods for giving us long bouts sometimes.
Agree.
Also, Gonoyama, I think, is taking up the Takakeisho mantle. As he fights, he's got so many similarities to Takakeisho, and I just want to say thank you again to the sumo gods for giving us a replacement for Takakeisho. When he retired, we've got somebody like Gonoyama with a very similar body shape, very similar style.
Every time I see him, I literally make the sound effect. Nom, 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 nom.
Which sounds like a hamster, which it really does.
Which is, he's hunched over and he's like he gets in there and he's like, I'm angry, I'm mad. And yeah, there's something joyful in the way he attacks, which is,
it's from
when
the
you
lower
watched
ankle.
Goedo,
Yeah.
I felt very much that same closed off kind of thing happening. But I know that's random, but that's how I also love that about Gonoyama.
And on day 12, he beat Takara Fuji. And I just enjoyed it. And I miss Takakeisho, I think, is really what the bottom line is. I miss seeing that style of sumo. And so when somebody like Gonoyama gives it to me, just thanks. Miss the big guy.
And was this the day Bushozan was back with his hand, foot, mouth disease?
I don't know. To be honest, I didn't really watch Bushozan very much. He
Because you're like, he's got to be spreading that to a whole bunch of other people.
No, I just thought he didn't look like himself until the final, maybe 3 days. Like, you could tell he just felt bad the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, and so when somebody's obviously injured or somebody doesn't feel good, I think, oh, it's not really a fair fight. So it's hard to be inspired by that, unless it's somebody like Takayumi doing amazing things through his injury, and then I can be inspired. It's all about the story I'm telling myself, I guess. So no Busho-san. But if you saw something you loved about Busho-san, do tell.
Yeah, no, I did like when he started to win.
Okay.
But other than that, I just worried that he might be viral, like he might be patient zero.
Patient zero. Because we're getting towards the end of this Basho, I'm going to skip to the end. I really appreciated what Tobizaru tried to do against Wakamoto Haru just because it looked so funny. And he just like jumped in and hugged Wakamoto Haru's head and neck. And you could see Wakamoto Haru kind of be like, what the heck are you doing? Tobizaru had his neck up high, but then Wakamoto Haru just got his left arm deep inside and won this bout. But I had to really appreciate Tobizaru's variety that he threw in there. Like, he really does try to be something new in every bout. And when it doesn't work, it's always kind of amusing. But I like
because he usually has his hands up and he's like grasping at the air when no one's there. He like kind of goes into that boxer stance, which is always kind of funny.
I always imagine that fight that he had with Hakuho, you know, where Hakuho was like, come on. And he was like, just all over the place. I like somebody who's not afraid to try something new.
It's even the style of sumo, which is kind of funny looking. Yeah.
So I had to appreciate that on that day. Okay. But of course, the last fights of the day are the ones that I'm going to talk about. Kirishima versus Takanosho. Mm-hmm. Takanosho, of course, looking so solid. Kirishima not looking solid at all. But
I can't even talk about him.
I know. It's so sad. But their matchup, I always forget that. Every time I forget this. Takanosho has dominated their matchup just about every time. It was 11-2, and that's in Takanosho's favor. So Takanosho has Kirishima's number, which I don't fully understand. But I was like, oh, okay, well, this should be an easy win for him.
Right.
And then somehow this match seemed to get really heated. And they both kind of looked angry, and there were some slap attempts by both of them until Kirishima got behind Takanosho and then shuffled him on out. It took one push to take Takanosho out with an oshidashi, but it was unexpected, and there seemed to be some emotion behind it, so of course that's going to stand out to me. I just don't understand why sometimes a slap seems to piss people off, and then other times it's just like, ho-hum, as part of the day. Like, if somebody slapped Shishi, he'd just be like, oh, okay, I'm coming in for more. I don't know where that voice came from.
That's what he sounds like. That's what he sounds like.
But sometimes it's not a problem, and then other times it really pisses people off, and I don't understand why.
Right. I don't know if it's how hard it is, or that they don't expect it from that guy and they get it, or it's not considered. I mean, Hakuho always got crap for doing it because overall thought was that it's like somewhat of a cheap shot, but it's legal. But Hakuho's perspective was like, you do whatever you got to do to win because that is what a yokozuna does.
I think before we start every podcast, we should just slap the shit out of each other.
Yeah. That will definitely turn my mood in some direction. I don't know if that's what you want, but
I think we'd have to both agree to do that. We could do the tortilla thing that they do on social media, you know, where you put water in your mouth and then you slap each other with the tortilla. And then you laugh and you spit water all over the other person.
I have not seen that.
Oh, the tortilla challenge.
That's not clearly not my algorithm. My algorithm is like hardcore koala rescues. So
mine's a lot of elephant and sloth as well. But I do tend to get the tortilla challenge a lot. I think because people end up spitting water in the other person's face. And I love a good slapstick move. And somehow Google knows that.
Yeah.
All right. Back to the sumo. We got Hoshoryu versus Shodai on day 12. Hoshoryu followed Shodai's every single move and took advantage of, so let's just call it momentum, a forward momentum always. And Yori carried Shodai out. That meant he went to 11-1. And I love it when Hoshoryu gives a spicy face and spicy sumo. And that's what we got on day 12. And I think all of us respond to that. We're like, "Ooh, ha, 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 Hoshoryu, go, 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 go." Okay, so that meant Kotozakura, also in the share of that lead, met Big D, Daisho, and Kotozakura stayed very well balanced in this match.
Yes.
Daisho's pushes did not do much here. Kotozakura absorbed them and then pushed back, and out went Daisho. This was like watching someone pound a wall of sourdough pizza crust over and over and over, and Kotozakura just absorbed it. Until he pushed back. It was so beautiful, and that kept Kotozakura also in the lead with 11-1.
It was very exciting to me at this point, being like, oh, I like the leaderboard. I really like the leaderboard.
Yeah. Final bout of the day, Takeru Fuji versus Onosato. I like this matchup because these two have been doing sumo together for years, and I think we're going to see much more of this matchup in the future. Yes. This time, Onosato moved Takeru Fuji back and out. Takeru Fuji tried to slap down, but it did not work at all. Onosato just went forward and only forward, and I would call it a definitive win. So that got Onosato his Kachikoshi, which is great, but I just mention it because I do think we're going to watch these two fight for years to come.
Yes.
So at the end of day 12, two guys shared the lead with one loss. Of course, Kotozakura, Hoshoryu. Takanosho had fallen 1 to 10-2, and behind them, running up to try to stay on the leaderboard, was Abi and Gonoyama with 9 wins, 3 losses apiece. And that takes us to a very, very exciting day 13.
Day 13 started with Tamawashi. Tamawashi easily beat Asakoryu, and I mention that because congratulations to 40-year-old Tamawashi, still a winnin'. But this guy, I fully expect him at 60, 65 to still be donning a mawashi and in makuuchi. I'm going to skip to...
Wouldn't it be great if he was just fighting normally, but he got to wear like a red mawashi then?
Yeah, because he's like Kanreki.
Yeah, and then at 65, they're like, you have to retire.
You have to retire.
You cannot...
Like, what am I going to... I can't even be a coach now.
And they just say, I'm sorry, these are the rules. You have to retire. You didn't get to be a coach. You were just a Rikishi the entire time. And that is okay. We've loved having you here.
Right.
And then we'll do your Kanreki and your retirement ceremony at the same time.
Right. And then you just go straight to get his hips replaced or knees replaced or something. Anyway, I only mentioned Mitaki Umi versus Shona no Umi because I kind of didn't believe this fight.
Yeah.
Because Shona no Umi already had his Kachikoshi. And Mitaki is fighting on one bum side. And it looked like a really weak Tachiai. Very weak Tachiai that somehow drove Shona no Umi back and miraculously straight forward and out. I don't know if there's match fixing or there's just unsaid things like, man, throw the guy a bone. You're not going to win this Yusho. You already got your Kachikoshi. Just help a guy out.
Or possibly because he's an ex-Ozeki. He's got a lot more experience under his belt, and he knows how to win with one leg. I think that's possible.
Yeah, it just, the believability wasn't there for me from the Tachiai. And Shona no Umi also did not come in with any sort of Tachiai. And that's why I was like, that looks weird. But I'll just say that that's just what I saw, and a lot of other people probably saw lots of other things. Wakataka Kage versus Onokatsu. Oh, Wakataka Kage is so good. He Tachiais. He immediately gets a shallow right-hand grip and a deep grip and just chugs along and moves bigger Onokatsu back and out. Wakataka Kage's skill level is so high.
Oh, yeah.
So fast.
But you can
He's
see
such a
Onokatsu,
technician.
like tagging along, like, oh, I get it. Learning complete. Got it.
Yes. He is much larger, and he tried to set up a throw. Wakataka Kage just dug in. He swallowed him up and was just like, Onokatsu was completely unable to move sideways or any direction. He was just kind of along for the ride out of the dohyo. And Wakataka Kage was in the driver's seat the whole way. Beautiful sumo. This match between Hoshoryu and Onosato was fun, but let's just say Hoshoryu's pregame ritual is getting more and more dramatic.
And I'm 100% on board.
This was the longest towel sniff holding up to the face deal I have ever seen. More belts, more demon walk back and forth. It's
maybe
really
had, like smelling salts in there.
Yeah, it's really developing nicely. So I'd say that experience from all those years of doing sumo, it's finally coming to fruition. This beautiful pre-bout ritual. Onosato doesn't play that way. He's just here for the sport, and Hoshoryu is here for the crowd. Onosato doesn't even make eye contact up top. Like he's like you do you, man. I'm just going to stay focused on what I need to do. They are such different styles. But I would say once they tachi-eyed, it happened. It was actually faster and stronger from Onosato. Hoshoryu seemed to be rocked back, but he got lucky because Onosato kind of manhandled him back and into the edge. But where Onosato went awry was at the very last split second. Hoshoryu was literally on his way out. He yanks like hell on this last thrust that Onosato sent his way. He yanked down on Onosato really hard. And that force of like that momentum sent Onosato down and into the dirt first.
Yeah, he grabbed his arm. Yeah.
And me
Hoshoryu
personally,
grabbed his arm. Yeah.
I would have actually called a mono-e, but that was not agreed upon. Like in the slow-mo, it just looked like Onosato, like Hoshoryu's leg broke the plane, of the dohyo before Onosato's foot hit. But that clever hand pull at the edge was really quite extraordinary. And that's where he shows his experience as Ozeki. It was so quick, so deadly, like a snake bite. And now Hoshoryu's at 12-1.
That was Onosato's 5th loss.
Yeah.
And this is where I started going, okay, Hoshoryu as the other Ozeki beating him, I think, is a pretty big deal. It shows that experience is worthy of a lot of cred here. But, okay, he lost to Wakataka Kage and Abi, just like last Basho. Hoshoryu lost to Takanosho and to Daisho. And all of their styles are so very different. It starts to paint a very different picture of who Onosato is as a wrestler at this level, I think. Like, there are several ways to take him down. And this one...
He's still developing.
Yeah. And this one... Well, there's been several, like, right at the edge. But I really appreciated this one because, you can't lose focus even for a moment at the edge of the ring. Or someone like Hoshoryu or Wakataka Kage. I mean, this was very similar to how Wakataka Kage took him down last Basho. Right at the edge, pull on that arm, pull that big guy out before you. Yeah, there's still some learning to do there, and that's exciting to see, I think.
Well, and the advantage is, Onosato had a really meteoric rise.
Yeah.
Hoshoryu had years as a Maegashira wrestler developing his style. And his style is taken slower to develop, but we definitely see Ozeki's style with Hoshoryu, finding out what's his body type, how he's fighting, what are his skills.
Yeah.
Onosato, we know he's a big and strong, he has many natural gifts, but we don't really know exactly what his style is. And he's still developing it. So Kotozakura is in the same category. It took him a little bit longer to just get up to Ozeki, right? So he's developed his style through the years of kind of living and learning it. And now their styles are very evident. It's very apparent. Kotozakura up against Takanosho was like a big one. But Kotozakura truly did his Ozeki style sumo in day 13. He stood up at the tachi-eye and absorbed a faster Takanosho tachi-eye. He got a right inside grip and worked Takanosho around and then quickly reversed the direction he was going and tried to push Takanosho out. But then Takanosho drove back on Kotozakura. He had a lot of gas in the tank. He had a lot of momentum. He had a lot of energy and power, Takanosho did. But at the edge, he got really excited. And Kotozakura used this momentum that Takanosho had and tried to usher Takanosho to the dirt with a beltless arm throw. Takanosho felt it, and then he lunged the other direction to avoid being thrown. Then Kotozakura just did the same exact move on the other side and stepped back and out of the way and put his hand on Takanosho's head and finally sent him to the dirt. I think at the end of the day, it was a Uwatanage. I don't really know. But the staying power Kotozakura had in that match, the maneuvering he did when he sensed Takanosho had an advantage over him. But Kotozakura's skill came through in this match, and he beat Takanosho. And my heart was a little sad, but then my heart was also like a little glad.
With that loss and the loss the previous day, that dropped Takanosho 2 bouts behind the co-leaders. So we had Kotozakura and Hoshoryu with 12-1, and then Takanosho had fallen down to the 10-3 group and was there along with Abi and Gonoyama. Oh, day 14 was the day... Okay, I'm going to skip over this. Day 14 was the day that Ichi Yamamoto met Takeda Fuji. I don't know what happened with that call.
Yeah, that was
a weird call.
That was bonkers.
It was one of those calls where when you watched it in real time and when you watched it in slow-mo, Takeru Fuji really seemed to hit the ground first. For some reason, he won that. And there are some times when that happens where you just have to go, I just don't understand sumo. There was no mono-ii. There was nothing. I don't know what happened there. I don't get it. I just give it up to the sumo gods. And I'm like, okay, you got one on me. Either everybody was sleeping or I don't know something about sumo. And whatever it is, I humbly bow and say, okay, I have more to learn.
Right.
It was bizarre. It was strange. But I'm just going to skip right over that one. Oh, day 14 was the day that Wakataka Kage met Ura. That was the fall where Ura pancaked the guy on the front row, and that video came in that was just so good. But the win from Wakataka Kage took him to double-digit wins. And at Maegashira 2, I think that means we're going to see him back in Sanyaku next time, and that is super exciting. Shodai met Chura no Umi, and I mention this only because Shodai lost by tripping. And the name of this is so great. Inadvertent collapse.
Yes. I felt for him so bad because...
Oh, me too.
I mean, it is like an ice rink out there. They are slipping and sliding all over the place. Yeah. And he just happened to step on the Shikiri-sen and it did him in. Yeah.
The Japanese name for that, Koshi Kudake. You really don't see it as often as you would think. It does suck when it happens. It's kind of like, oh, shoot. I'm just going to go right to the end. There was really great sumo all the way across the board. But let's just go right to the end. Kotozakura versus Onosato. And for me, I thought, okay, Onosato wasn't able to beat Hoshoryu, the other Ozeki. Let's see how it goes this time.
Right.
With this Ozeki. And as you would expect, there was a big tachiai. These two big bodies just came pounding at each other. Onosato pushed Kotozakura back, and Kotozakura responded with a belt grip outside, I believe on the right, and threw a beauty of an Uwatanage.
Yes.
And I was so thrilled with this. That took Kotozakura to 13-1. And Onosato could not beat the other Ozekis this time.
He's got some learning to do.
Loved that bout. Kotozakura just looked calm. And again, he's got that skill that Terunofuji talks about a lot, the ability to absorb. And it's such a great skill. It really is. So it's cool to see Kotozakura come into his own in this tournament. Last bout of the day, Kirishima versus Hoshoryu. I kind of knew the way this was going to go, but I loved watching it happen. Hoshoryu gave us a dominant and dramatic win. There was absolutely no question, as he immediately got the double inside grip, grabbed around the back of Kirishima, grabbed his belt and lifted, and not just a little bitty lift off the ground, but lifted Kirishima up to like shoulder level and walked him out like it was this display of power. I
call it like
high.
the misbehaving toddler lift up.
I know you do, yeah, but it's more like a sign of victorious like there's something about it that's like lifting something powerful in the air, like through the power of Grayskull or something. I don't know, but it's so no one else has this win but me. And
yeah, like you can win, but like the flair that Hoshoryu has by lifting him up and out was quite dramatic.
Yes,
and
I absolutely loved it.
Kirishima with like his face at the end was like, whoa. Whoa. I just got had in the most embarrassing way.
Yeah. So what it meant was on the final day, we were going to have a showdown between Kotozakura, the boy who has been developing this look of like one eyebrow lift and these like pursed lips that look like kind of he's inflating himself for these matches. This whole Kotozakura versus Hoshoryu and his wild eyes and his spicy sumo and his display of power. And I was so 100% behind this matchup on day 15.
Yeah, it's an Ozeki showdown.
Mattered. Nothing else mattered. I was, yeah. And so that's really the big fight on day 15, but I'm sure you have much more to talk about.
By the way, Kotozakura's developing face. There was a news article that chatted about how he's developed that pre-bout ritual. And he said that his grandfather always wanted him to, or instructed him to become a demon in the dohyo. And even though it's not been a conscious thing, he has not developed this being like, I'm going to become this. He just kind of let it organically happen. And he thinks, he's like, I don't really know when I started doing it, but he understood the separation between being in the dohyo and what that is and what that becomes for that 5 minutes. And prior to leaving your body and like letting yourself be calm before and then after, like letting it go immediately. That whole developed pre-bout ritual is something that he thinks maybe started happening once he got up to, or started to be developed once he got up to Sanyaku. But it's part of his technique to try to separate himself out prior to the match, because he said he used to get, I think, nervous, sitting there overthinking too much. So he tries to sit there calmly. And then once he gets in the dohyo, he taps into whatever that is for the 5 minutes, allows himself to go kind of whole hog into it. And then after it's over, Yeah.
So
it's maybe compartmentalizing that and dealing with stress. And that's helped him.
I get that. I mean, that's like being show ready, Like you warm yourself up before a show. You make sure your instrument is warm. You're not going to get hurt. And then you're waiting in the wings. And then you do whatever you need to do to get yourself up to that particular place. And then leave it all there and then walk away.
Right.
That makes
Otherwise, you
sense.
go home and you have sleepless nights and you don't rest well and you worry about it all day long. You leave it on the dohyo. But let's talk about day 15. We had Takeru Fuji up against Tamawashi. Now, this was very nice because Takeru Fuji got inside and refused to let go and manhandled Tamawashi to the edge. When Tamawashi fought back, tried to get out of it, Takeru Fuji pulled on the back of Tamawashi's head and ushered him into the dirt. And he ends up with a really nice record. It was a Tsuki Otoshi win. But I mention this because on day 15, let's not forget Takeru Fuji, who we love and we will see more of. And I know he'll go up in the rankings because wasn't he way down at the bottom? His track was easier this time. But it'll be really interesting next time because he'll get a bump up to mid-ranks, somewhere in there probably. And we'll see if he starts to muddy the water, especially for some of these Ozekis like Onosato. I'm going to say kudos for Mitakeumi, who, although he lost on this day, he still went 7-8, which is pretty good when you consider he had a stretcher exit and a massive bruise on his left hip.
Yeah.
So 7-8 means he might go down a rank, but maybe 1. That's close enough to a Kachikoshi, and that's pretty good with that stretcher exit.
Yeah.
Abi, even though I don't know why they predetermined some fights and then they don't predetermine some, was going to get the Fighting Spirit Award, which he got no matter if he lost or won up against Gonoyama. And he actually lost. Gonoyama beat him. And he's been a hard guy to beat. And so Gonoyama beat him, but Abi still gets the Fighting Spirit Award. But
I thought it was the outstanding performance. Which one?
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it was outstanding performance.
I thought it
don't
was
know.
for beating Hoshoryu.
Oh.
Like for beating Ozeki's, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought it was determined on, some of these are determined on the last day. If they win, they get it and they don't. But theirs is because he beat the Ozeki.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then congrats, Abi. I'm sure he's listening. Okay. Then we have Wakataka versus Takanosho. Now, this is the one where Wakataka Kage is already getting a technique prize.
Yep.
And also a fighting spirit prize. Well, I don't know. Did he get one or two? I don't know.
No, Takanosho.
Takanosho got the fighting spirit.
If he
won.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, Takanosho, upon the Tachiai, held Wakataka Kage off of his belt. He got moved backwards. Takanosho did, withstood the Wakataka slap down attempt, and then he actually ushered Wakataka Kage down into the dirt in front of his feet. And we have a happy ending for Takanosho. I mean, I'm happy to see Wakataka Kage up in the mix, doing really well.
Oh, yeah.
But Takanosho walked away from it with a prize, so that melted my heart, and that makes me happy. I love him.
That was a solid win. Solid win against the guy who got the technique prize. That is nothing to be ashamed of.
Exactly.
And he's done this. I mean, that's what makes Takanosho so fascinating to me, is that he gets, he can go 11-4 and then 4-11 and 11-4. He can pop back and forth like that. He is capable of.
And he shows you all of his feelings in every bout. He wears his emotions on his sleeves.
Fabulous sumo. Fabulous.
But he's just got to get some wins under his belt to give him the confidence to do it. I really feel like it's a confidence thing. His body is there.
I don't know.
He has the skill. But anyway, Wakamoto Haru versus Daisho. This was a huge hit and shift for Wakamoto Haru, who eventually slapped down on Daisho. This was the fastest defeat ever. It was a Tsukio Toshi thrust down. And I was a little surprised at how easy that was.
Yeah, well, and it showed that Wakamoto Haru, ending with a 10-5 record at Komusubi, is ready to be Sekiwake,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're ready to be right up there. Great.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not like he hasn't been there before. He's been there before.
Right.
Yeah, get him back up there.
Onosato easily beat Kirishima through a shoulder swat. I don't really need to mention that because all we're really caring about is this last bout, which is Kotozakura versus Hoshoryu. Both of them brought their A games as far as their pre-bout ritual goes. Please correct me if I'm wrong in any of these notes because I was just excited writing it. I was like, I don't even know if I have the names right. So Hoshoryu, upon Tachiai, went in guns a-blazing, but so did Kotozakura. Kotozakura had some flair, in the same sort of vein that Hoshoryu does. Hoshoryu threw lots of thrusts and pushes, and that had Kotozakura reeling backwards. Kotozakura is desperately trying to lift up on the elbows of Hoshoryu to raise his center of gravity. Hoshoryu senses that. He pushes, and he senses, like at this moment, that his pushes aren't working like he wants them to. So he quickly reached inside, gets a grab on Kotozakura. Kotozakura also goes under the inside of Hoshoryu's pits and sank into his stance really hard, really deep to avoid the throw that he knew was going to come his way. Hoshoryu turns, attempts that throw that Kotozakura saw, but Kotozakura withstood that epic throw attempt by hopping on his right leg and somehow not going backwards. He somehow resisted that throw attempt, and I don't really know how. Hoshoryu had moved around to the center after that failed throw attempt. It was amazing how he maintained his balance and stayed grounded in the chaos afterwards. Kotozakura had a grip and got Hoshoryu wrangled into the dirt with a push on the back of Hoshoryu, who was lower than he was. And also, I think a slippy otoshi from Hoshoryu after that throw attempt is really what did him in. It did not help him. He could never get himself back up because he kind of went into the splits, the straddle splits. And so it was kind of an unfortunate, like if they met on day one, I don't know. I think Hoshoryu would have been upright, but that dohyo was slippery on day 15. All that to say, I have to credit Kotozakura because he has fought so long and so hard for this. And so has Hoshoryu. They both are related to legends, right? Hoshoryu, the nephew of a former powerhouse of a yokozuna. Kotozakura, the grandson of a yokozuna. And his father is Oyakata. And this gave Kotozakura a win. His grandfather won 51 years ago. And it was a moment in time for this kid, the kid who's always been trying. He's the only kid. His dad's an Oyakata. His mom is the daughter of a yokozuna. I mean, come on. He's the only kid. The amount of pressure. He made it to Ozeki. Now he finally gets his Yusho. This is an epic moment in time for this kid. Like, that's amazing when you achieve an accomplishment like that.
Yeah.
I feel like Hoshoryu's is around the corner as well.
Well, and he's already had some.
He has, right? But for Kotozakura, it was something else, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't really have that much news other than just say, I think his father actually watched from the car in the carport because
he was nervous?
he cried because he wanted to cry, like he said, like a father would. Because they use honorific names, meaning his father is not dad to him. His dad is Oyakata. His mom is Okami-san. And his dad also has to play that part, right? So in his dad's generation, the Oyakata that was there before, they raised up Koto Shogeku. They raised up some other guys. But Kotozakura is his son and is the prodigy in that stable. And how you separate that, both of these people, and then to achieve this is massive. That's got to be just, I hope the kid sleeps like a baby tonight, even though the pressure is already mounting for the next Basho because they want him to become a yokozuna. That's the ultimate end game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
What? And if he keeps fighting like this, he'll get there. He will get there. When I watched this match, I think he did a great job describing it. When I watched it, we actually watched this one together. Right. We were watching day 15 together. And I remember my reaction after watching Hoshoryu slip. I was like, oh. And then immediately followed by, oh my gosh, yay! Woo! I was thrilled however this one was going to fall, which I don't usually watch my sumo that way. Actually, that's not true. I almost always watch the sumo that way. Like, I will be happy whichever one wins. But this one, because it's Kotozakura's first, I am just so happy for that kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's same thing when Shodai won his. Watching someone achieve their greatest dream that they've had for decades will never get old to me. I just think it's incredible to watch. Beautiful. Hoshoryu's sumo was fabulous from beginning to end. And I think you're right. If he hadn't have slipped, it might be a whole different outcome. But you gotta know where your feet are underneath you. There's nothing to be ashamed of from either one of them. The sumo was great. The Basho was great. No complaints here. It was really fun to watch. Right?
And I mean, Kotozakura, we've seen, the news out today. It's him. It's interviews. He's smiling. He had 8 kilogram sea bream when he was lifting it up. Big celebrations. His parents are so incredibly proud. We don't know where it's going to go next, but at least for right now, I'm just delighted for this kid. He's been in Makuuchi forever. He has fought really hard.
Yeah, but his records have been consistently getting better over time. It really is like he's cream.
He's rewarded
rising to the
for
top.
his hard work,
Well, and I know he's had some knee troubles in the past, and he's worked so hard to get past those.
Yeah.
he's met with all of the same difficulties that everyone else has met with, and he just seems to be able to stoically just keep moving up. So I hope that this kid has a long and fruitful career at Ozeki or maybe even Yokozuna. If he could stay healthy, I could see him do it. I really can.
Yeah. I did forget a tidbit of news.
What's that?
Kitano Fuji passed away.
Oh, yeah. Should we do something on him next week?
I think so, because that was one of the ideas I had this week is like,
Great.
when someone great kind of within this world dies, let's remind ourselves of his greatness. And from one Yokozuna to maybe another Yokozuna hopeful. That would be kind of fun to do for next week.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. We'll have more for you next week. Please tune in for an episode about Kitano Fuji. I think next week we'll also do some thank yous because we have a lot of people to thank.
Yes, we have so many generous donors and
Okay.
people who have sent such great, like, awesome stuff our way and so
Yeah.
much love and support we feel from y'all. So I would absolutely love that.
And we'll also tell you who our second place bingo winners are next week. So we have lots to look forward to. Tune back in. We'll talk to you after Thanksgiving. Bye.
Until then, bye.
Ja mata. Sayonara.